quick recap on HMS Polyphemus, built 1881. She was a torpedo ram, which was the only one of her type in the Royal Navy, and the inspiration for the fictionalized torpedo ram Thunderchild in H.G. Wells's War of the Worlds, which you can actually buy models of. I suppose the wargaming community think of it as something with a cool name, but the real Royal Navy torpedo ram looked completely different to the description in that H.G. Wells gives. This is as she would have looked from the surface, but the interesting bit is below the waterline. This gives some idea of there's an even better picture, albeit a drawing. So this is a contemporary drawing. As you see, she's almost a semi-submersible. They didn't call her that in those days. There's no intention of being submersible, but the entire crew quarters, most of it were below the waterline, and she was meant to use two radical types of armament at the time: the new locomotive torpedo and a very old but reconstituted weapon, the ram, which of course had fallen out of favour during the entire sailing navy phase of history. But with the advent of steam, there were some incidents in the American Civil War and the war between Austria and Italy in the 1870s when the ram was used. So people had the bright idea of combining the two. In reality, of course, the ram soon became obsolete with the advent of quick-firing guns, which would have meant it's no good you getting too close to your enemy. Now, just going back a minute to this picture, one of the rams which I have to reproduce, the torpedo tubes, is right at the bow here. It is a ram, but if you look closely, there's the cap of a torpedo tube at the front here. They were supposed to combine the two. Presumably, if you're going to ram your enemy, you weren't going to have a torpedo up the spout at the time, and then presumably you'd have to straighten out the ram to reuse the tube. So I don't think they ever did that. Well, they certainly didn't do that, even on tests. And I think she had a couple of other torpedo tubes firing sideways. What I'll say is that my modelling techniques are not going to be particularly instructive or radical or advanced compared with most of you. It's basically a case of cast the thing and then add the detail with plastic later on. And most of my models have been waterline models, but I couldn't, because there's so much interest on this one under the waterline, I couldn't really just do that. I've got to do the whole hull. That shows how a model has been done in I think it's in the Glasgow Maritime Museum, with a plate glass frame for it here to show above and below the waterline. And straight away, this actually illustrates some of the dangers of copying anyone else's model, because there are several bits which are either been knocked off or were never put on. So again, and I've been caught out by this in the past, actually, don't be overawed by museum models, because they're not always right and not always complete. So my principal plan is this one from Brass's Naval Review, 1885. Now, I know I could have gone to the National Maritime Museum. They probably got, or they certainly have got plans, builder's model plans there. The trouble is they charge £80 a sheet, and I would have needed several sheets. It only costs, reduce it to £60 for extra sheets to make it worthwhile. I was going to be prepared to pay that. I talked to them on the phone. The last straw was when they said that if I was going to display this model at exhibitions, even if I wasn't being paid for doing so, they were going to have to charge me an extra 50 quid. So I told them what they could do with their plans. So I've made do with this, which for the scale which I'm working at and my general skill level is adequate anyway. And you can see all the pencil markings I've made to calculate the scale I'm going to be working at, or what the dimensions of the model. My models have to sort of sit on a bookcase without taking up too much room, so they need to be about a foot long. So I've made it at a scale of 1 in 288, which is a quarter of the scale of 1 in 72 of the common model aeroplane scale. So I think that is 1 inch to 24 feet. I have to revise that, but I think that's what it is. So when I say carve, I don't just carve from a solid block. Basically, the bread and butter technique of making it in slivers which I can carve to shape and then basically glue them together, which apparently not only makes carving somewhat easier, but also makes the final model less prone to warping. If you're going to do it this way, you've got the choice between building up the layers either vertically or horizontally. This one, I've gone for vertical planks, which is useful if you've got a vessel with a shear on the upper deck, because then you can sort of carve that much more easily than you can if you're carving it out of a flat surface on the top of the hull. Polyphemus didn't actually have much of a shear, and I actually wish I had done horizontally layers. Now it would have been easy, less lumpy on the side. But anyway, so this was started off with the center part of the bread and butter here. Basic shape of the upper deck, which is a simple raised forecastle. Start to sketch in the shape of the thing, label what it is, and then so accumulate several layers like this. So labeled center, left one, right one, left two, right two, etc. This was supposed to be a jig to get which, as far as I can approximate from the drawing, was to help me get the final shape of the outer hull at its widest beam. And if you turn this over, you get the same on the opposite side. Carve those. There's no particular technique to that. I always remember one of our long-standing model member of the Bromley shipwrights. I admired his sort of carving handiwork, and I said, how do you do it? And he said, you just get on and carve it. So that's what I've always remembered. Then clamp the lots together with lots of PVA glue, and then I did that to about sort of a 2/3 of the total beam, because obviously after that it was starting to narrow down greatly as you got out to the rounded part of the hull, and then start again just to carve and whittle away to get to the shape you want. Each of these layers, make them slightly smaller each time, so I've got less carving to do. Make sure the outer parts of the outer corners of each layer are there, sort of wide enough so that I can I'd shave off that corner without actually having to add anything in. And you end up eventually with something like that, very rough, very horrible looking, which leads a lot of sanding down and filling. Add on the keel underneath. I think you're looking at the underneath part of it there. This is going to be the stern. Eventually a rudder will go there. Like I said, looks really horrible at the moment. And that is close to what I've got it at the moment. I've got the model here. I don't know whether it will be I wonder if it's possible to share my camera. Yeah, so like I say, this is still very far from what I want it to be eventually. It's still got a lot of work need to do it, but you can see I've got you might be able to see I've got the first lot of primer on, a layer of white primer, and from previous experience, the first layer of primer really is there to sort of show up what remaining blemishes you need to do, what more filling you need to do, bits that you need to be either fill or to sand down a bit more, of which there are a lot. I mean, you probably can't see the first layer is covered with primer, but there is a lot of filler in here. I sometimes wonder why I don't make models entirely out of filler rather than just not bother about the wood at all.